Freeman, and it's incomplete. Or did he make the catch at the 15?
Yes.
What are they going to rule it? He caught it? Touchdown! He did what?
In the end zone, it is caught for the win. Richard Rodgers with a walk-off touchdown. Total disbelief at Ford Field.
Rushes on, has time. Looking, throws, middle, got it there. Breaking free to the 50. He may go all the way to the 20 down the right side. And it's Randall Cobb to the 5, to the end zone, to the touchdown. Oh my goodness.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Green and Golden Boys Packers podcast, the podcast for Packer fans living inside enemy territory. I'm Charles, and with me as always is Marcus.
Hey,
And Marcus, it's Border Battle Week.
border battle with the Bears, baby.
This is in fact the 202nd all-time meeting between these two teams. The Packers, by the way, are leading the rivalry with 100 wins, 95 losses, and 6 ties. But in more recent history, the history that we like to focus on, Aaron Rodgers is 19-4 against the Bears in games that he both starts and finishes. And what a border battle it'll be. A few weeks ago, we may have thought the Bears might be, folding up, calling it a year, getting ready for next year, but they've clawed their way back over the past few weeks to put themselves in contention of the last and final wild card spot here. All they need to do is beat the Green Bay Packers. The Packers also need a win to secure and lock up that number 1 overall seed in the NFC, and of course get that coveted first round bye. Marcus, how you feeling?
I feel good. I like the way this Packers team is playing, obviously. This Bears team has been getting better as the season progresses. Obviously, they had a strong start to the season, kind of a faltering mid to late portion, and then they've been playing pretty well these last 4 games. Let me ask you something really quick, though. Obviously, like you said, the Packers need to beat the Bears or have a Cardinals loss to secure the number 1 seed. Now, these games are being played simultaneously, so we won't see, we won't have a result by game time whether or not the Packers still need to beat the Bears. By all accounts, they're going to need to win this game. Is that how you like it, or would you rather it be back, no matter what, with any help, Packers need to beat the Bears, or would you rather it be a situation where this game doesn't matter? I mean, we've seen both scenarios in the past. I'm just curious to get your take on, if you prefer one way over another.
Great question. Quick, the Bears would need a Cardinals loss if they lose to still sneak into the playoffs. The Packer fans, though, we're going to be watching that Seattle 49ers game.
Oh, I apologize. Yes.
Yeah, no worries. If Seattle loses and we lose, we would still lock up that number 1 overall seed. But your question is still the same. How would we feel, if we need this game or if we didn't? And I think, obviously, I would prefer if we didn't need the game, and I would like to see Green Bay treat it like a third game preseason game. Where, first stringers play for maybe the first half and then maybe we start pulling guys out the second half for safety reasons. And honestly, since this game is down in Chicago, who notoriously have a terrible field to play on, that is something to think about where, guys twisting an ankle one way or another. I think I would always wrap up the number 1 seed earlier rather than later, but it is still a nice spot to be comfortably in the playoffs. We know we have a postseason ahead of us. It's just, God, we both really probably want that number 1 overall seed.
Okay, and interesting take, especially regarding Soldier Field, because like you said, it is notoriously not a great field to play on. I didn't really think of that in terms of injury, but you're always wondering, like, that last game, if you can keep your starters out a little bit, keep them healthy, make sure you're not going to get anyone hurt or injured. That said, I like having this playoff mentality. We saw this play out the opposite way in 2010, where the Packers needed to beat the Bears to get into the playoffs. by all accounts, the Bears threw everything they could at us, and we still, came out with a big win that week. I don't want to give the Bears an opportunity to make the playoffs. I want our team to be focused on what they need to do to win the game and to kind of have that playoff mentality going in. I don't want anyone to have a reason to take the day off or not kind of give it their best. And again, there's always that risk of injury, but I kind of like that going into the playoffs, getting your guys those reps and not taking the week off. I don't know, maybe a controversial take, but
no, I think to that point, you kind of flipped me a little bit too, just because, I mean, if you got guys who are in but aren't 100% in, you can make the injury argument that way too, right? Guys trying to pull out weird instead of, making solid, confident football moves. I think you can make the argument both ways. That being said, even if we had it all wrapped up already, which again we don't, so we're just talking theoretical here, you got to at least play them, the starters, because I just think 2 weeks off is tough, right? And you're not hot going into the playoffs, to your point. So I like where we're at. I like needing the win, and I like needing a win against a team that we're favorited in, right? It's not, I'm glad Tennessee didn't fall to us this week and the Bears last week, but definitely not looking over the Bears, because the Bears are red hot as of late. And do you want to tell our faithful listeners what they've been doing here the last few weeks?
Well, yeah, I mean, they obviously played pretty well against the Lions, but lost that game. But they've won 3 in a row since then. They've been playing pretty well since they lost to the Packers 5 weeks ago. One thing I've noticed is Trubisky's been playing really, really efficient football. I mean, he's got over a 72% completion percentage in the last 4 games. His passer rating is over 107 over the last 4 games. He's throwing over 250 yards per game. He's only thrown 1.5 touchdowns per game on average, which tells me that, they don't need him to throw a bunch of touchdowns to win. They just need him to play really well, sound, fundamental football between the 20s, and they can use their ground game at that point to punch him in for a score. And then obviously Trubisky's a dual threat. He can run the ball really well, as good as any quarterback in this league. So, I think that's something to definitely keep an eye on. Obviously David Montgomery is always a threat, and we want to make sure that we're, trying to shut down the run. Because like a lot of teams with a solid running game and maybe not a great quarterback, they rely a lot on that running game and get the play action going. But those are some things that I've noticed. What about you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you nailed it. Trubisky was the starter, then wasn't the starter, then got hurt, then Foles got hurt, now he's the starter again. And yeah, he's had a heck of a last 4 games. But that also goes with David Montgomery. He's also turned it around. I think everyone knew he was a decent running back, coming into 2020. He had kind of a slow start. In fact, he averaged 52.5 yards the first 9 games that he played in. His last 5 games, he's averaging 106 yards per game. So, bad news for the Packers, but the 2 most important guys on the field right now are red hot. That being said, Lions, Vikings, Houston, and Jaguars are their last 4 games. Now, we played those guys too, and we actually lost and had a close game, a loss against the Vikings and a close games against the Jags. But on paper, Chicago probably should have won those games, and maybe some of these stats hopefully are a little inflated, and maybe we're ready to pop that bubble and bring them back down to reality when they face a improving Green Bay defense and a number 1 in the league offense.
Gotcha, for sure. Let's talk a little bit about the Chicago defense. I mean, I think one thing you've got jotted down here is that they're a top 10 defense regarding points per game. And you can talk all day about allowing yards and things like that, but at the end of the day, putting up 500 yards and 12 points isn't going to do it for you in the NFL. So they're only starting doing 22.3 points per game this season. Again, we're kind of looking at these last 4 games as a measuring stick, or at least I am, and they're actually better than that. These last 4 games, only allowing 21 points per game over their last 4, and that includes that loss to the Lions, and where they had Lions put up 34 points. So this is a stout defense. I mean, we know we know they're always kind of have a strong defense. Obviously, they've got a pass rush. And I think when we played them, there was no Hicks. So
Yep.
I think with him back, our offensive line is going to be kind of put to the test again. They've been played really well lately, minus a couple weeks ago. But yeah, I think again a formidable Bears defense. As long as we can protect Aaron Rodgers and kind of beat that pass rush, I think we'll be in a good position.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I mean, I don't think we should just roll past what you just said. Akeem Hicks is back. He didn't have the biggest game this past week, but we didn't have to face him when we played him and beat the Bears a few weeks back. Akeem Hicks is our, Kenny Clark. He's not this huge sack creator, but he is a lot to deal with for our running backs. I think it's awesome and perfect that A.J. Dillon just had his breakout game last week because I think we're going to rely on him a lot. I'm assuming Jamal Williams is going to be out another week, and I think we're going to rely and kind of split that time a little bit with Jones and A.J. Dillon to really try and punch Akeem Hicks back, in the face a little bit because this Chicago defense, right? They're still, they're still the monsters of Midway, and it's scary. And if we can't get 3, 4, 5 yards on first and second down, on the ground, then those plays that Aaron Rodgers has been successful with the last couple weeks, picking secondaries apart, won't happen. Because now all of a sudden you got Khalil Mack, pinning his ears back, and he makes the amount of money he makes for a reason, right? So I think this game is really going to come down to the line of scrimmage battle, and again, you and I both said on our podcast recapping the first Bears game that this game might have been different if Akeem Hicks would have played, and Aaron Jones if he would have had a tougher night that night. So.
Yeah, for sure. So why don't we talk a little bit about our keys to success? So we were just talking about defense. Let's talk a little bit about Packers defense. Who has to have a big game, or what do you think your key to success is for the Packers defense in order to win this game?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we basically just have to cool down this offense in general. And like I said, in the game, that all comes down to Montgomery and Trubisky. The one stat that we passed on when we were talking about the Bears offense before is in their first 11 games, they were averaging under 20 points a game. In their last 4, again, as the measuring stick that we're using, they're averaging 36 points per game. So I think the key to really slow that down is their biggest contributor, which I think is David Montgomery, and stopping that run and not allowing a run like last week from Trubisky, 45, 55-yard sneak down the middle of our defense untouched for a touchdown. I think, defensively, I kind of want to treat this like we did with Tennessee last week and stack the box, have 4, 5 defensive linemen on the line of scrimmage, and then make them beat us with Allen Robinson, right? Allen Robinson is their only real downfield threat. He's the only one who has passed 1,000 yards receiving, and no one else is even coming close to that. I think 600 yards is the next closest, but I'll take my chances with Jair Alexander, Darnell Savage, and Amos covering the folks downfield if we sell out for the run again.
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree. I'm going to take that one step further and just be a little bit more specific. So I think I agree. Keep the defense, keep David Montgomery from beating us, but in particular in the red zone. So I want to say red zone defense is our key to success here, because I think what we've seen from this Bears offense the last 4 weeks is they're going to move the football. They're going to move pretty well, pretty efficiently between the 20s. But if we can make a stand, inside the 20, and we can keep them from, like you said, Mitch Trubisky sneak for a touchdown, or handing off to David Montgomery or something like that. I mean, to your point, I would rather them try to beat us with Jimmy Graham or Allen Robinson, because I feel more comfortable about those matchups than I do, with them trying to run it up the gut for a touchdown.
On that note, before we blow past that, do you think we have a guy just to make sure that they make them beat us, passing? Do you think we put 4 or 5 on the line and make them